What's up? What's up? Real MVPs, Ricky Widmer here, along with a face that you have not seen in quite some time. I am along with a dear friend, a beautiful face as always, Brandon Swanee Swanson, back with me here on MVP. And Brandon, how have you been, my brother?
I've been all right, Ricky. I've been all right, hanging in there, going through all the COVID stuff, which I, couldn't get. We can't get rid of it fast enough, but doing okay, hanging out in the basement. But it's been good, man. I'm happy to see some sports back, hoping that baseball can make it through. Now no help from the Cardinals or the Miami Marlins, but I think that we'll be able to make it. I have hope, but it's good to see some live sports back, have that back, NBA, hockey. It's really good to see that. And really with the NBA and hockey, they're doing a really nice job of their bubbles. They continue to test players, and it looks like players continue to be negative. So that's really, really good news.
Yeah, and I mean, we've said every single day, NHL, NBA, no cases. Baseball, it's a different topic, and we're going to hit that today because the Cardinals are definitely one of those. It's also nice to see yet a little bit of the sports memorabilia around you, so you're kind of in the atmosphere for this one, ready for this one. But I got to ask you before we do housekeeping and everything, because we have not had, since Sean had left MVP, and obviously we took the hiatus and I haven't been able to talk to you, we have not had, you are our first White Sox representative on the podcast. I know a couple fans in the Discord, Sam being one of them, that's kind of a little nervous with all the injuries that we've been seeing. But before we get into everything that we're going to talk about, I just wanted to ask you, Sox fan out there, what are your thoughts on this young season so far from your team?
Well, I think it's been an up and down so far for the White Sox. They came out and they had that first series with the Minnesota Twins, and the Minnesota Twins clearly showed that they are one of the best teams in baseball because they just hit the cover off the ball. But the White Sox also didn't bring their best stuff in those games. And then we went to Cleveland and didn't do all that great there either. And then we went to Kansas City and things got a lot better. But when we were playing in Kansas City, I think we had the best batting average in baseball at like 281. We no longer have that. But so far for the White Sox, it's been up and down through 17 games at 8-9, a game under 500. But we had a 6-game winning streak. That was nice. Played a couple of good games against the Brewers. For the Sox right now, their thing is they've got young guys who I think are starting to figure it out, but also at the same time, young guys. And we have some really good pieces. Dallas Keuchel, who I think has been, worth every cent.
He pitched yesterday, right?
Yeah, he did. And then after a really bad game from the White Sox overall, really not Keuchel's fault, he called out people. He said, we did not play well, and we can't, have days off like that and expect to win. And that's the type of leadership that the White Sox really need. So it's nice to have him, guys like Jose Abreu, who are, good leaders in that clubhouse. Biggest thing for the White Sox right now, injuries. We cannot have as many injuries as we have had so far this season to a number of hitters and then a couple of pitchers already this year. For a 60-game season, if we want to be able to try and make the playoffs, which this year there's really a legitimate shot where almost any team has a chance, maybe not the Pirates anymore, but almost any team but the Pirates have a chance.
When you got 16 teams going from the entire 30, there's a good chance you'll be in the top half.
I mean, you've got a real chance to go for this thing. So we cannot have injuries. No team can. If you have that many injuries piling up so quickly, especially in a couple of injuries a day, a week, it's just not going to go well for you. But so far, the White Sox have been good. They're definitely a roller coaster. I thought that, maybe it wouldn't be so roller coastery so far this season, but it has been 8-9. There's days where I'm just like, I'm done with this team. And then the next day I'm like, wow, this is great. I love White Sox baseball.
It's a baseball season, though. You got
games
each and every day to look forward to. But we've got a jam-packed show, mainly looking at NFL and MLB today. Brandon on, not big of an NBA guy, so we're going to push the NBA stuff to the end of the week as that season ends on Friday before the play-in tournament this weekend. Then the postseason starts on Monday of next week. But before we get into everything, little bit of housekeeping. Number one, If you want to support us, go to patreon.com/MVPvids. That is where you can interact with the show, get live content early, become a producer for our live shows, or get access to our voice channels in our Discord. We have 4 great tiers that allow you to do all that while supporting us. You get something back from us. Remember, if you're watching on Twitch, hello, thank you for watching the show live. But if you ever miss a show, you can catch the shows on YouTube at MVP Sports. And if you're on YouTube and you're like, shit, I would love to watch the show live and interact in Twitch chat, you can do that too. 4:30 Central Time each and every Monday through Friday. We record this show on twitch.tv/MVPvids. I'm trying to think. Podcast services. These will be on them soon. And yeah, check out MVP Entertainment if you have not already and you like a little nerdy side to your sports side. I'm pretty sure that's all the housekeeping. One more thing. Draft content is coming. I've seen a lot of comments. Hey, where's the draft content? Where's the draft content? Coming soon. My team fits. Those will be out at the end of the month. Dave is working on some stuff with the prospect side, so we will have draft content very soon for you. But let's jump into everything, Brandon. What we're starting with is a little bit of homegrown, not the team we root for, but they're in the division. You're a Bears fan. I'm a Vikings fan. We are familiar with the Green Bay Packers. We see them 2 times a year. With us both living in Chicago, I get to watch 4 games a year against the Green Bay Packers when I catch Bears games that are on TV. And we're talking about Aaron Rodgers' future with the Packers because earlier last week, so this is a week old, but still kind of a relevant topic, he was asked to define what ESPN had said a really long time. They said that Aaron Rodgers was going to be with the Packers for a really long time, and Rodgers took the short-term view. This is from CBS Sports, where he says, I savor every moment, every season. I don't know what the future holds. I know I can control this year and my play and my approach and my attitude. Packers drafted Jordan Love in the first round of the draft this past season. And Brandon, I'm just going to be frank and ask you, how much longer is Aaron Rodgers going to be wearing a Packers jersey in his career?
Well, quite honestly, Ricky, if the Packers were smart, they would do it until his legs fall off because Aaron Rodgers has been nothing but a godsend for the Green Bay Packers, really going from Brett Favre, or Favre, as some would say, to Aaron Rodgers. And I mean, that is just the most holy of holy handoffs there. And Aaron Rodgers really has been such a great quarterback for Green Bay. He has led them to a Super Bowl. He's led them to a number of playoff appearances, some deep playoff runs. And this is a guy that you do not let him leave that building until he is ready to leave that building. That's the type of guy he is. And that's the type of player he is, certainly. And I think it's been fun to watch Aaron Rodgers. It's been frustrating because I hate him at the same time. So it's fun to watch him, but you hate him. But when you are also able to respect that type of guy, I think that really speaks to his ability, and that's the type of guy you want on your team. That's why you hate him, because he's on someone else's. Yeah. But I mean, you look at his stats and what he's just done over the years. I mean, his worst year in terms of interceptions, it was his first season. That has to go back all the way to 2008, Ricky. That's incredible. I mean, last year he didn't have as many touchdowns as he would have liked to, but he was still over 4,000 yards. He had 26 TDs, only 4 interceptions. The year before that, almost 4,500 yards. He had 25 TDs, 2 picks. I mean, this is a guy who is very efficient. He's very good. He finds his receivers. And the best part is the Green Bay Packers have one really, really good receiver. That is Devontae Adams. Outside of him, it's a cast of characters. They could put Ricky Widmer and Brandon Swanson out there. But guess what?
Hey, Aaron Rodgers, they had Geronimo Allison for a while. Got to give the Illinois rep.
I mean, you can rep him for Illinois, but he wasn't great. I guess my whole thing is that it doesn't really matter. He's one of those type of guys. You could really put him, I don't think this is an overreach, to put him in the category of the Peyton Mannings and guys like that, in the sense of you can have anybody out there and he's going to make them better. he's going to make them better. I mean, I understand that people will be like, you can't put Aaron Rodgers in the same sentence as Peyton Manning. Well, you can, because he does the same types of things. He's won a Super Bowl. If you're going by that, Peyton Manning's won, what, 2 Super Bowls? Mm-hmm. One with the Colts, one with the Broncos, and then Aaron Rodgers has won one.
Don't forget that Super Bowl loss also for Peyton.
I think he'd like to forget it.
Yeah.
But ultimately, Aaron Rodgers is a great player. Mm-hmm. And the Packers, if they were smart, they're not getting rid of this guy before he is done. Yeah. And when he says he's done, then Jordan Love or whoever else it might be, here's the keys to the kingdom. But until the king leaves, you don't take away the crown.
For me, the thing, I agree on so many things you said. Like, for example, when you were talking about the Peyton Manning, like putting him in that category, you could easily, like the thing I thought of, you could easily put Aaron Rodgers in the T1 quarterbacks. How every year ESPN or whatever does, like, here's the tier 1 quarterbacks, here's the tier 2s, and here's everyone else, and then there's Mitch Trubisky off to the side. But I mean, with Aaron Rodgers, I almost have a feeling of like he's a T1 quarterback with the luck of Phillip Rivers. Slightly better. And the reason why I say that is, yes, Aaron Rodgers has won a Super Bowl, and everyone loves to rag on him for that. How is he only won one if he's such a great quarterback? Like, you look at Tom Brady. Tom Brady's a great T1 quarterback, but he also has arguably the best coach in the NFL with him. Whereas Aaron Rodgers had Mike McCarthy for many years. And now he's got Matt LaFleur, who's trying to do a new offensive system. And yes, it worked last year, but I feel like management is trying to do the same thing they did before, where the Packers are a team where they don't want to be in that like situation the Patriots are in right now. They didn't, like, the Patriots were kind of hoodwinked by Tom Brady, where they were like, hey, you know what, Tom, this is your home. We love you. Please come back. This is where you belong. And then Tom said, no, I'm going to be a Buccaneer. Deuces. And now they were stuck with Jarrett Stidham, and now they've got Cam Newton for a year, who many are like, oh, coming off an injury, how he's going to be. Hashtag MVP Cam is going to be back. Wait and see if we get a season this year. I'm calling it right now. But the Packers want to avoid that with Aaron Rodgers. So I don't think Aaron Rodgers is going to finish his career in Green Bay. It's just a question of me, how do the Packers get rid of him? Because this year I think he's safe. He's going to be a Packer all year. Next year, I would even think he's safe. So the next 2 seasons, Packer fans have Aaron Rodgers to look forward to. But it's after 2021, the Packers technically have a potential out in the contract. They could get out right there. But if they feel like Jordan Love still isn't ready after 2 years, we could see a situation where they go, hey, we're going to let Aaron play 1 more year, and then before that final year of his contract, which would be 2023, hey, we're going to dump you to this team because this team is basically getting Aaron Rodgers for a free year before they do anything. A la Brett Favre, his year with the Jets, before he went to the Vikings like he truly wanted to.
So now, why do you think, though, that they would want to try and get rid of him, though? I mean, what would be their motivation on getting rid of him? No, you have a proven guy who, again, as long as he continues to stay at the level that he's at, I mean,
it's a little bit of money, and also, like, if they think Jordan Love is at the level to compete at the NFL, they can get rid of Aaron Rodgers, have a quarterback it's the same thing they did with Brett Favre. Hey, we're going to have the cheaper guy come in who we believe is just as good as you. We're going to dump you for money and use that money elsewhere. Like, that would be the mindset. Is it the right mindset? No, I agree with you. You keep Aaron Rodgers until his legs fall off because he's the only thing that Green Bay has going for him right now. But I do think that this ownership the Packers organization has always been, it's the organization above everybody else. And it's never going to change. It's not going to change overnight, per se.
I mean, I feel like with where Green Bay is at right now, with Aaron Rodgers at the helm, they've got a good offensive line, they've got a good running back. I think really what they need is they need some more weapons for Aaron Rodgers to throw to, because again, Devontae Adams is a very good wide receiver. I think that you could argue he's a top 10 wide receiver, but he doesn't ever really get top 10 love, which is really surprising, I think, to me. But he's like their guy. It's the Aaron Rodgers to Devontae Adams show. There needs to be other options for Aaron Rodgers to be able to throw to, and other viable options.
I want to cut you off really quick because I do want to just get in. A lot of their wide receivers right now are young. They've got Devonta Adams, who leads the crowd, but Alan Lazard, who we talked about in the draft, I want to say 2 years ago from Iowa State, still developing. Valdez Scantling, who's still developing, and then Equiminius St. Brown, who they just got in the 2018 draft. So it's like their wide receivers are young also.
Could you imagine, though, if they were able to get another Devontae Adams-like guy on the other side for Rodgers to be able to throw to? I mean, that would be a very dangerous offense. And that would be an even more dangerous offense, I really think I should say, because it's already pretty dangerous right now. And I think you're right. Only time will tell on some of those younger wide receivers. Marquez Valdez-Scantling has shown some really good things, I think. But ultimately, the Packers could use some more weapons there on offense for Aaron Rodgers. And I really am surprised. I think as everyone else was surprised, Aaron Rodgers was surprised by the pick of Jordan Love this past year in the draft. I don't think there were too many people who were thinking that Jordan Love or a quarterback was going to be taken with their, first pick that they had? I mean, that didn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. That's an easy way to piss off your franchise quarterback and you're the leader of your team. So I don't know if that was a message that the Green Bay Packers were trying to send to him without them actually having to talk to him. But I don't think the message went over too well. I think Aaron Rodgers and Jordan Love are fine right now, but that was not good. I didn't like that move. I didn't think that was a smart move. It didn't make any sense to me for the most part. I don't know. Of all the things, and this has happened multiple times in Aaron Rodgers' career, he needs weapons on offense. They know it. He knows it. He tells them. They ignore him. They go, oh, we'll go for this defensive guy. Oh, how about a kicker? I mean, these random things that they don't need the most, and they just flat out ignore the guy who wins them games. So it's if anything, it's not going to be the Packers that walk away from Aaron Rodgers. It's going to be Aaron Rodgers that walks away from the Packers because they don't listen to what he has to say.
Do you think there's a situation, because I looked at the draft just to fact check us. Not only did they take Jordan Love in the first round, they traded up to do so. They traded up 4 picks with Miami to do so. So it's like, here, have our first and a later first for us to move up and get this guy. That might add a little bit more salt to that wound, but couple things I'm looking at kind of based off of what you're talking about. And before I get to the question I want to ask you, based off of what you said, here are some of the top receivers that'll be available after this year, whether or not the Packers want to spend money on it. One of them's AJ Green. AJ Green and Devonta Adams, that'd be a fucking pretty good duo there. You've got Allen Robinson, who is up with the Chicago Bears. T.Y. Hilton is up, and Keenan Allen and Sammy Watkins round out the top 5.
I just want to add in there, Allen Robinson is probably one of the most underrated wide receivers because of the quarterbacks that he has worked with. He has worked in Jacksonville with Trash.
Yeah.
He has worked in Chicago with Mitch Trubisky, who has been hot and cold. If Allen Robinson was working with an Aaron Rodgers, Robinson would be an easy top 10 wide receiver, 1,000 yards a year, 8 to 10 touchdowns. Guy would be an absolute stud. Yeah. He's already a stud, but he would add the absolute to the front of it. So honestly, any of those guys that you mentioned, if they're available, the guy who could be the biggest surprise, if there is an NFL this year, and I hope that there is, but if he is healthy and he's able to have a good, healthy year, a full 16 games, the steal could be AJ Green.
Yeah.
Because he is, oh gosh, what is he, 32 maybe?
I'm a fact check you there.
He's getting older for his position.
He is 32 at the moment. He'll be 33. He just turned 32 at the end of July 31st.
So this guy's approaching 35. He's not turning 35 next year, but he's approaching 35.
But you compare him with Aaron Rodgers. Give him a 3-year deal.
But my point that I was going to say was not necessarily who you're going to give him to or who you would pair him with. Yeah. It's you wouldn't necessarily have to pay a lot of money because what guys are getting big paydays in their later 30s, which is basically their mid 30s for NFL. They're not. So the Packers, again, if he puts up a good season, and before he got injured about a year and a half ago, or actually it was last year, he was looking pretty good. He was looking good in camp. He was looking really good, strong, good route running again. Everything looked healthy again. Then he got hurt his ankle. That had him out all season long. That was just a mess. But if he's able to put a solid season together this year, AJ Green could be a steal for the Green Bay Packers if the Bengals decide to go in a different direction.
The last thing I'll ask you before we move on is, I think what I said is how I think it's going to play out is Jordan Love's going to take at least 2 to 3 years. If he takes 2 years, they take that potential out and Aaron Rodgers walks and we're getting a free agency summer from Aaron Rodgers in 2022. If it takes Jordan Love 3 years, which I think it may be the latter in that, where it takes the 3 years, I think that the only way he gets out is if they trade him. And the last thing I was going to ask you, you said that it would be Aaron Rodgers' terms that ends this tenure. Do you think at some point Aaron Rodgers walks into management's office and says, I demand a trade?
Give him one more draft where they refuse to listen to what he is asking for on the offensive side. Give it one more draft and he will be asked in that office saying, I don't think we're going to be able to reconcile differences here. And I think that we would be seeing then a situation which, again, would be very similar to Brett Favre.
You know what I am thinking in my head? You know, it'd be kind of surreal. I don't know if the timeline would work, but let's say the Packers let him go in 2022. Or even they do the thing where we're going to trade you and you're with the team for a year. Could you imagine if Aaron Rodgers said, all right, I'm going to go play for the Bears. I'll see you twice a year. Because he ain't going to play for the Lions. The Lions are nowhere near being a Super Bowl ready team. The Vikings, I think, will still have Kirk Cousins at that point. I don't think the Bears are going to have Mitch Trubisky by 2022 or even Nick Foles. So, I mean, I would be interested to see if Aaron Rodgers would be like, yo, I'll see you twice a year. See you in Chicago.
If that was a situation that he was facing, I don't know Aaron Rodgers personally. I've heard things about Aaron Rodgers personally. The things I've heard about him...
if you ever want to come on the show, you're more than welcome to.
The things I've heard about him and his personality, he would do exactly that. Just to spite
little spiteful.
The Packers.
Him and Dave would get along then, because Dave also is a spiteful person. But let's move on. Football, let's kind of segue into the next one. The New England Patriots. And this one's not going to take a ton of time. It's just the New England Patriots are a team we haven't talked about on the show. And now that I have you on, I want to kind of talk a little bit about it. So today, the New England Patriots have given Lamar Miller a 1-year contract. So they get an addition after how many guys they've either lost or opted out of this year. Cam Newton sitting there going, come on, guys, this is supposed to be my year, my redemption year. And you're opting out of the season because of COVID, which we totally understand. But now the running backs for New England, Sony Michel, who's their top running back. They've got Damian Harris. They've also got Burkhead still, James White, and now you add in Lamar Miller. What should the expectations be with the Patriots this year, with everything that's kind of going on with them? The whole kit and caboodle. What should people and fans of New England expect this year from the Pats?
Well, I would really temper the expectations. I know that a lot of people, and obviously you go on Twitter and people are saying that, oh, it's the Bills' turn now. You know, things are finally turning in their direction. We've jumped on enough tables. You know, we've earned it. So I think that a lot of people think it's the Bills' time, but then you see Patriots fans who respond, or even non-Patriots fans who really don't know anything about football, but just want to, be a troll and say, well, New England's still going to win it. I think this might be the first year where, doesn't matter, New England's still going to win it. May not work.
Yeah.
Because you are without your leader. You're without your captain. You're without the man. And that's Tom Brady. And Bill Belichick is a really good coach. He is the best coach in the NFL. But when you don't have Tom Brady, that's really hard. So look at how the Patriots were last season. Again, they weren't great. It wasn't like wonderful football. It certainly wasn't clean. If you watched any Patriots games, any Patriot fan who was being honest would say that. But Tom Brady was able to make it work. Somebody who's not Tom Brady might not be able to make it work. Cam Newton, who when he was Cam Newton, not this, kind of injured guy. I don't think this is Cam Newton. Cam was really good when he was healthy. He was a stud quarterback. He could throw the ball. He could heave it down the field. He was accurate. He could run. He was fantastic. This is not that same Cam. He's injured. I think that even if his arm is okay, that is exactly what it is. Okay. Doesn't mean it's good. Cam, when he was it the beginning of last season, when he was still playing, where he played a couple of games and then got hurt again, he was not good. He was not on target. He was skipping passes. He was coming up short to receivers. That's not going to work here. That's not going to work here, especially when a lot of the receivers, the ones we saw last season, they're very young. They're inexperienced. They're not all Julian Edelman. And as we saw with last season, you can't just throw it to Julian Edelman. So this year it's going to be very different for the Patriots. You look at the running game. Sony Michel, the fact that they signed Lamar Miller, it doesn't look good for Sony Michel. He has another injury. I'm pretty sure.
I mean, I'm looking at that. I'm surprised with the fact of you said it doesn't look good, because if I know the injuries would probably be the issue here, but if I were to guess, it'd be James White or Rex Burkhead, which would be like, ooh, I might get less touches, because the thing that I'm thinking about in my head is, think about when Cam was good. The Panthers had D'Angelo Williams and Jonathan Stewart, kind of a two-headed rushing attack.
Yeah.
I think if Sony Michel stays healthy, him and Lamar Miller could be that, with a little maybe like James White mixed in, because I think he would be the third one. But like, that's what I think, where Sony Michel could be your D'Angelo Williams, and then Lamar Miller is more of your Jonathan Stewart type runner.
And that could be, but the problem is Sony Michel is injured and may not even be ready in time for the season. So the problem with Sony Michel, one, was the fact last year that they didn't even seem to really use him that often. They didn't really want to run the ball, and when they did, they didn't really want to run it with him.
Yeah.
So when bringing in Lamar Miller, I know that you want to be able to have somebody who's hopefully going to be healthy, and Lamar Miller has had his injury concerns in the past, and he has struggled to stay healthy. Hopefully he'll be able to put in a full season and stay healthy when called upon. But there's just so many question marks for this Patriots team. For the longest time, it was just, we've got Tom Brady, it'll figure itself out, we're fine. But you don't have that anymore. And yes, you have Cam Newton, but people have to remember, again, it's not the Cam Newton of old. It's the Cam Newton of, we're not sure what we're going to get. It's him. It's a nice name to have on the roster, but if he can't get the throw to the guy because he doesn't have the arm strength, a name doesn't mean squat. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens this year and how things shake out for New England, but they're not going to win the division. If they do, it will be the Angels picking them up and dragging them to the front of the division. It's going to be the Buffalo Bills.
If they do win the division, it's because of the only thing that I question about the Bills, and I do agree with you, I think the Bills win the division this year, but my only question mark with the Bills is Josh Allen. Does Josh Allen have it to win the division? Does he have it to put the team on his back to make sure this team wins its games and wins the division? Or is this going to be a Bills team where it's like, woo, if they didn't have that defense, Josh Allen's good, but man, you cannot put the team on his back. Where the Patriots, I think, they're in the line of at least you still have Bill Belichick. And Bill Belichick knows how to field a team. Now, everything that COVID brings with all the opt-outs they've had, that's going to hurt them as well, which is why I think they don't win the division. But it's going to be a wait and see there. The last football thing I want to get into, Brandon, is the NFL draft kind of. And not like a who's going to go where or what we usually do. This has to deal with news that happened yesterday. Yesterday, the Big Ten canceled its season. And today, as we were prepping for the show, I did not see the full headline. I just saw what ESPN wanted me to. But you are right. The Pac-12 didn't just cancel college football this year. They canceled all of their sports through the end of the year. And I know Brandon's sitting there going, Pac-12 football, who cares? Wasn't watching it anyways. But this is now the the third Division I conference. The MAC started it over the weekend. The third conference that we've talked about on the show, because Big Ten, Pac-12, MAC, UConn in their own right canceled their season, and the Big Sky from the FCS, which is right below FBS, they also moved their season to the spring. So we've had a couple conferences and teams cancel or move their season. The thing I want to ask you, Brandon, is how does this affect the NFL draft, and will it have a big major impact on the draft? Because the thing I think of is the guys like Trevor Lawrence, the guys like we've seen already, like, for example, I think it's Jamar Chase and Micah Parsons, who have basically been like, yo, I'm opting out of the year. I'm going to get ready for the draft. This is not going to affect them. They're top 10 talent. They're still going to get drafted. But for the guy who's maybe right now, hey, I might be a fourth rounder, and this season could really be something for me to kind of up my stock and get into the third round. Or maybe, hey, I'm not on people's radars, but if I have a good season, I might be a 5th, 6th, 7th round pick. How is this, in your mind, going to affect the draft with guys either coming out and not having the tape on them, or them just saying, fuck it, I'm not coming out because there's no for sure I'm going to get drafted because I didn't have any tape from this year?
Well, it's certainly going to affect them negatively. I mean, I don't see how it wouldn't. And that's just really a shame. And you feel for these guys. You understand safety. You take that into account. Obviously, that's number one. We don't want anyone to get sick. We don't want anyone to start the season and then not be able to finish it because of, contracting the virus and something going, terribly wrong. So obviously that's number one. I get that. But I also feel terrible for these guys who work so hard to try and get better and be better every single season. And especially these guys who are not going to be first rounders, who aren't going to be a number one overall pick, who may not go, like you said, Ricky, until the 4th round or the 5th round, or that guy who is the last pick of the draft but still gets picked. I mean, they are trying to bust their butt and then have a good season to have film to show, as you also mentioned, to these scouts that, hey, I'm worth the pick. Even if it is the last pick of the draft, I'm still worth that pick. When they don't have that, they can't just be like, well, last year wasn't that great, but I would have been better this year. You have to just assume I would have been better this year. They don't have that luxury. That doesn't happen. And that's a real shame. And I also look at it as, honestly, with even a Trevor Lawrence, even with a Justin Fields, guys who know that they would be drafted, they still want to be able to go out there and play and be able to prove something a little bit more. Mm-hmm. They want to be able to solidify their spot either at number 1 or number 2 or number 3, whatever it might be. They want to go out there and do that. That's money on the table potentially for them, and they want to be able to get it. So I understand that too. This is just, thank you, COVID, for turning literally everything into a mess, because that's what it is becoming. It's becoming a mess. And then it's becoming well, we're delaying our season. We hope for the spring. Let's be real. We probably won't have that either. And I hate saying that on here, but the way that things are going, the way that it's looking, if we have a vaccine by the end or first of the year, which is also probably
not for sure.
I don't want to say a long shot, but it's hopeful. It's wishful and hopeful thinking, and that's fine.
I think the last thing Dr. Fauci said was, if we have it by then, it's like that's the best case scenario. Yeah, it's like everything went right. But
then not even everyone's going to take it. Like the flu shot, people won't do it. And it's like, well, no, I'm not going to do that. Well, why wouldn't you do that? But I would assume that
conversation, man, because those are idiots in my mind.
But if you're gonna have players, those players are gonna have to take it. Yeah. Those players who want to play NFL, college, they're gonna have to take it. Yeah. And I think they would be happy to, because if that allows them to have their season, they're gonna do it. But basically, back to your thing, it's going to be affecting them in a negative way. I mean, there's no way around that, and it's really hard, because you then have a really interesting decision to make. It's do you come out and you hope, or do you stay in and believe that everything's going to be good and ready to go by next year, and that then you'll play again, with the hope, because, we thought that this virus was going to be gone by now. It's not even close. So when we say that we hope that it'll be gone by next year and I'll just play then, and I'll then come out after that, you can't even say that with 100% certainty. So it really puts these players, again, we're not necessarily talking your upper echelon players. We're talking your mid-level players who are still good because they're going to go to the NFL, or most likely go to the NFL, but it puts them in a bind.
The thing that I'm thinking is, because Jake and I on yesterday's show kind of touched on this, and this kind of ripples in to college football as well. And some of the guys that you're mentioning, I just kind of scroll through the mock drafts. Like, for example, I'm just going to throw out a random name. For example, Terrence Marshall Jr. from LSU, who's right now the 87th pick. Is he going to stay the 87th pick? What if he had a good year and he skyrockets up to the second round? Like, that can happen across the board. Like, these guys aren't going to get that chance. But the thing I mentioned to Jake in passing on yesterday's show that fits into this conversation is college football, because of all this, is going to have some decisions to make, more so than what they're doing, and 2, could affect their players, because the thing that I've seen circling around college football, or the Twitterverse of college football, and I agree with it to some extent. Seniors, it gets kind of iffy, but I have a mindset of what I believe there too, is the general populace believes if there's no season this year, like they don't play in the spring, you get a redshirt year. You don't lose a year of eligibility just because we didn't have a season this year. The only tricky thing that plays into are seniors. Are seniors then going to be allowed to, hey, since you didn't lose a year of eligibility, you can come back? And like the Trevor Lawrences, the Micah Parsons of the world, this ain't going to affect them. They're out. They're working on the draft. But if I'm like a 5th round senior and I get the option to come back, if enough kids do that, how is that going to mess up college football with the incoming recruits coming in? Then it's like, am I going to have to redshirt for some incoming recruits? upset them because I made recruiting promises of playtime, and I know that coaches always lie about that stuff. Anyways, oh yeah, sure, you'll see the field your first year, and then they don't see the field in year 1 or 2. But how is that going to mess up college football even, where like they're going to have to decide what they want to do there because they have recruits coming in and the recruits can't go back to high school. Once you finish high school, you're done. It's not like college where it's like, well, I finished my bachelor's, but I have an extra year of eligibility, so I guess I'll start a master's, at least for the year, so that I can play football in the fall. Is this just going to be a big can of worms for college football that, like, they're not going to... I hope that they'd be able to solve it, but is it going to be too much for college football to basically solve? And is some things going to fall through the cracks? Is what I guess I'll ask.
I mean, I think it's a can of worms now. Mm-hmm. I think it's a can of worms now with trying to, figure all of these things out. It's a can of worms because, okay, you're going to have, I mean, I know I'm coming at it from a little bit of a different perspective, but you're going to have you're going to say that we're going to move and try and delay these sports until football until the spring. Mm-hmm. Then you're having basketball competing with football. And so then you have, I think you have some different problems there for the school and for the, for your programs themselves, because you have football that is the sport in the fall. You have basketball that is the sport in the spring. So you're going to have kind of differing problems there that are going to arise for you as the universities. Mm-hmm. But then also, I just think that you're right in the terms of how is this going to affect coaches? How is this going to affect how they go out and how they're going to be able to recruit? If they don't know if a guy is leaving or not, then maybe they're not going to necessarily recruit for that position because, hey, we have this guy, we're still going to hold on to him. We know that he's going to be there. Of course, you're going to recruit for positions that are going to come up. I mean, that happens all the time, but it still puts that in an interesting situation if you're not exactly sure who's leaving, who's coming, who's going, and you ultimately have to, just kind of guess and roll with the punches. And I guess it's just about an open communication plan between you and your players on, just being very honest about, what do you plan on doing? What do you want to do? And, what's your ultimate goal and plan here? So I think that that's what's going to be the interesting thing. And then, is the university, because last year, I mean, the NCAA offered for people in the spring, for athletes in the spring who didn't get to compete, they offered them an extra year this year. If they didn't get to compete this year, are they going to add then another year on top of that? Or are they just going to keep adding years as long as this virus is around?
While these kids are finishing their degrees to where it's like, great, I'm a senior, but on the field, I'm a sophomore eligibility wise.
Yeah. And then kind of what you had mentioned, are they going to be forced then to have to take a master's or start a master's, even if they don't want to, just to be able to stay at school and play? I mean, that's going to be a very interesting scenario. So it's just
because that's a political can of worms itself. Because there's people out there now that believe like, oh, why are these, mainly like the football players, why are they getting scholarships just to play football and not go to class? And not saying football players don't go to class. It's different institution to institution. Like I know at Illinois, they make a big deal about going to class, and that the Big Ten as a whole kind of makes a big deal about that. But then if you've got players basically, well, I finished my degree, but I'm just going to play football and have that scholarship. How many people, I guess it doesn't matter if it upsets people, but it will. And that'll be a whole nother can of worms that college football has to deal with. But I'm going to say, let's put a bookmark in right here because we could go for hours on this. This is a like we said, can of worms that really has no stopping point. We could talk hours just on this one subject. But before we move on into baseball, I promised you baseball talk, Brandon. We are going to talk baseball here on the show. We're going to move on into a segment we do each and every Monday through Friday. This is where we put a spotlight on players. These are our wet boys, the dampest of dudes, the soggiest of shooters, the moistest of men, and in some cases, the mistiest of Mrs. Brandon, as we had a WNBA player get a wet boy nomination or an award. That's why we call her the Misty Miss, or I did at least, as Dave kind of rolled his eyes. But I'm going to let you go first, as I usually let Dave go first. Who is your wet boy or your player of the day from Monday, August 10th?
So my player of the day from Monday, August 10th is not an NBA player because I don't watch the NBA because it's a boring league. But I think that watch college, folks, watch college. But I think that I am going to go with Mike Trout. So Mike Trout is a guy, obviously a superstar, and people would not be surprised with the pick. But last night in the game that they finally broke the A's 9-game winning streak, they had won 9 games in a row, absolutely fantastic. But the Angels, who have really not been off to a good start, were able to break that in big part thanks to Mike Trout. He had 2 home runs. He went 4 for 5, 3 RBI, scored 4 runs. He's batting at .333. He had a huge night last night. He had a go-ahead home run. The Angels beat the Athletics 10-9. And for that, Mr. Mike Trout is a moist guy.
I was going to pick Mike Trout originally, but I was like, I'm not going to pick mine until Brandon picks his, because like you said, you were not going to pick. I knew you weren't going to pick an NBA player.
No, because I'd have to watch it.
Yeah, exactly. You're going to pick from the sport you watch. And I'm like, I just don't want to pick a baseball player and then take Brandon's guy, because I'm like, I'm going to leave baseball.
Man, don't do me
Brandon.
dirty like that, man.
But I'll be honest, we are going to have, some people are going to say we have a snub, and I'm just going to blatantly say this. Kyle Kuzma got snubbed this week, and I know a lot of people are going to say, but Ricky, he had a great game. He hit the last second shot against the Nuggets yesterday and won the game for the Lakers after almost causing the game with a blocking foul that gave the Nuggets a 1-point lead. Yeah, I know that is great, but did you see Aaron Nola yesterday? Because he fucking pitched his mind out against the Atlanta Braves. 8 innings, a 2-hit ball game, only gave up 1 run, struck out Diaz. That is 2 hands, people. 2 full hands of digits. Batters went down swinging and missing, and he had a whip of under .5. He had a .38 whip in that game. So the first pitcher we're getting on Wet Boys. Also, I'm all about the inclusion, getting new people in there. First pitcher, not first MLB player. He would now be the 4th, because we had Luis Robert was 1, Jose Ramirez was 2, Brandon just gave Mike Trout, which would have been the 3rd one, and then 5. I forgot Steven Piscotty got one for his walk-off grand slam last week. So 5 now. Right, if my math is right, 5 MLB players, 1 pitcher though that has
Aaron
gotten
Nola,
Boys.
That's pretty impressive though. Going 8 innings, most pitchers this year, they're not making it like past 5.
Only gave up 1 run, and the Phillies still won 13-8 because their closers got Craig Kimbrell syndrome and gave up a ton of runs. But the last Wet Boy is our patron Wet Boy, and this one you at home can help vote on if you are a silver or above member at patreon.com/MVPvids. Brandon, the patrons voted, and they made sure the NBA was going to be represented today, because Devin Booker of the Phoenix Suns, 34 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, shot 50% from the field, went 14 of 14 from the free throw stripe. He is your Wet Boy. He's been playing lights out. The Suns are still undefeated. I have to check. They were playing right now against the 76ers as we're recording the show. I am stalling because I am looking it up on my tablet, and they are winning after 3. So right now they're up 5, and they would be a perfect, clean, what would it be? Fucking 6-0, 7-0 in the bubble if they win today.
And Ricky, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's Devin Booker who might not be taking shots just on the NBA court, but also shooting shots in the Instagram account. Going for, is it Kendall Jenner?
Yeah, and that's a big thing in the NBA world, because everyone who's gone after Kendall Jenner, their careers have kind of done a little kind of have gone down after that. So we're going to have to see if he makes a shot with Kendall Jenner, because he's also doing them on the court as well. But Brandon, let's close the show with the MLB. And the first thing we're taking a look at, all of these topics, I will say, are from Brandon Swanee Swanson. I asked him, hey, man, give me 3 things you want to talk about from baseball. So we might go a little bit over the 50 minutes to an hour that we usually set, but it should still be good. We're going to look at surprising and disappointing teams, and we can go for minutes on this, but how I want to do it, kind of to keep it so we can talk about the other stuff as well. We'll start with surprising teams. You'll get a surprising team, I'll get a surprising team, and then we'll do disappointing teams, and we'll get one each. So actually, I'll let you start. You can either start with surprising, you can start with disappointing. Where do you want to go? Which team do you want to give some love to first?
Yeah, I'll start with surprising. And the first team that I would go with surprising would be the Detroit Tigers, a team that was absolutely awful last year. They were fighting with Baltimore for last place in the league. The Tigers are off to a 9-5 start. Very hot. They've scored 73 runs, and they've only given up 69. So when you look at that, and it's like, as someone may say, 69 runs sounds like a lot, but for the amount of runs the Tigers were giving up last season, their bullpen was terrible, couldn't hold down anybody. They are doing very well this season at 9-5. They're hitting a lot of home runs. They're tearing the cover off the baseball. Again, this is a team that was at the bottom of the league last year, and they're 9-5 in the Central, AL Central. They're a half a game back of the Minnesota Twins, who are 11-6. So that's really impressive. They've been a big surprise team for me so far this year.
Yeah, I think for me, and I'm kind of keeping it the same with you, I'm going to keep it in the Central because, like, the Tigers, really it was expected that the Indians and the Twins would be fighting for the top of their division. I know that there were a lot of White Sox fans too, Sam being one of them, in our Discord, that was like, oh, watch out for the White Sox this year. They're a young team. They're going to make some noise. But I'm going to give some love to the city of Chicago. And my big surprise team, the Chicago Cubs. And the reason why is, did anyone think they'd be 10-3 through their first 13? Because I didn't. Everything through the offseason was, when are they going to trade Chris Bryant? Who they're going to trade Chris Bryant to? I saw an article from not August 11th. I think it was like July 23rd or something like that, right around when the season was fairly new. And it was like bold predictions for the season. And the trade one was that Chris Bryant was going to get traded to the Phillies. Doesn't look like Chris Bryant's getting traded right now because this team is like on fire. And also with David Ross coming in, there were a lot of people that were like, okay, I don't really know about this. I was on the bandwagon of, I think this is good for the team. It was a smart hire, but there were a lot of people that were like, he doesn't have that managerial experience. And he's got these guys playing well, 10-3. Wilson Contreras, Javi, Chris Bryant, especially Anthony Rizzo, have been playing very, very well. I hope they keep it up because obviously I'm a Cubs fan. But that's been a surprise to me because I did not expect the Cubs to be this good in the initial tenure of David Ross.
Yeah, I mean, the Cubs have been solid. They've been a solid team. They've been winning a lot of games. They've been playing a lot of teams that are bad, so that's been very helpful. And good for them. Good for them.
Who's another team you either want to give some love to or not some love to?
Yeah, so I'll go another team that I'll go with for a positive surprise. I'd say the Baltimore Orioles.
Yeah,
so we're looking at
usually the bottom of the East.
Yeah, the Detroit Tigers and the Baltimore Orioles, the two teams that, again, were at the very bottom, like worst and second worst last season, Detroit and Baltimore. And Baltimore has been really good this season. They're 7-7. They're 500. They've been competitive. They've won a number of series. They're only 2 games back in a division where the Yankees are on top. So I think that's really impressive for Baltimore. They have a positive run differential. They're +6. So that's really good for them as well. They've got some hitters who are really putting it together, some pitchers who've also been doing really well. I think that they're a big surprise as well in the Central. Again, people were looking for the Tigers, the Royals, the Orioles to all be teams at the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that, yes, the Royals are at the bottom, but they're at the bottom at 7-10, only 4 games back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is not a far off, number, and 7-10 has still been fairly competitive for a team that, again, last season was really bad. So I'd say, again, the Baltimore Orioles, another surprise.
One of the other, I'm going to say a disappointment, but I want to give a quick surprise in there as well. The Marlins.
Yes.
After what they had to do, like they basically, I think it officially ballooned up to 21 people on that team had COVID. And since coming back, they're leading their division as of today, August 11th, as we're recording this live, twitch.tv/MVP vids. But basically, I just got to give them a little bit of a surprise nod there, because did not expect them, even healthy, to be winning the division or being in contention for the lead. I guess people could say, oh, well, Ricky, are you going to say the Phillies or the Nationals then are a disappointment? I'm going to say the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm keeping it homegrown, Brandon, the division that I watch the most of. And yes, the Cardinals are fucking things up right now. We're going to get into them to end the show. But I expected more out of the Brewers. I know they lost Grandal to the White Sox, but it's like, I look at this and I go, this team should be better. And maybe it's because the Reds have kind of been a surprise, which if you haven't already, check out Trevor Bauer's vlog series on the Momentum YouTube channel. I know he doesn't need the plug, but I'm going to plug it anyways, because he's doing a vlog series of like I think he's calling it like the Chronicles of a COVID season, where he's taking you behind the scenes with him on some stuff. It's cool to get that behind the scenes access. I love it. I love seeing like what the routine's like, what it's like being a player or a coach in this COVID season. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't. Maybe it's because the Reds are doing so good, but like I look at the Brewers and I go, you guys should be battling the Cubs for second place. I'm glad you're not, because we're sole providers in first place, but I look at the Brewers at third and I go, come on, man, you should be better than this.
Yeah. One of my disappointing teams so far this season, the Boston Red Sox. They are 6-10 and they are in last place in the East, in the American League, and they're bad.
Did we expect this though? Did we expect this though after the Mookie trade, like kind of the fire sale, the Mookie David Price trade?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
I didn't expect them to be that bad, because they still had a pretty good group of pitchers. Mm-hmm. They had Chris Sale, who was healthy. He's not now, but he's obviously out for the year with Tommy John. But the rest of that lineup is pretty good. It's very potent for the Red Sox. A lot of guys that are hard to get out, but a lot of guys who just haven't been hitting, and their pitching has been bad. So they have no more Rick Porcello. They have no Chris Sale for this year. Eduardo Rodriguez is out now with COVID. I think he opted out actually for the season. So there's 3 guys right there from the rotation, and they're struggling. This Red Sox team has not been good. They're losing a lot of games. They are not competitive. I think that's one of the problems as well, is they just really haven't been competitive. They got swept by the Yankees. That's a terrible thing to have happen to you when that is like the team that you need to beat. Mm-hmm. They weren't able to even do that, win one game in that series. So this is just a team right now that's really, really struggling. They still have a really potent lineup, but I also don't think that people took into account how hard losing Mookie Betts was going to be, and it has turned out to be pretty lethal.
And I want to move on. I want to go. We bring up the Red Sox are a good disappointment to kind of segue into the next thing I want to do. Well, you had suggested that we talk about. That's the trade deadline. I even asked you. I was like, wait, there's a trade deadline this year? I just thought because it was a shortened season, not that there wouldn't be a deadline, and this is kind of my thoughts right out the gates, because I almost sit there and I go, of course, like the Yankees are going to want to make a move because they're going to want to get like maybe a bullpen arm for their bullpen, or maybe the Cubs want to get a bullpen arm for a playoff run or a World Series run. But there's a part of me that's like, are we going to see a blockbuster deal done in the MLB this year because of how short the season is, and because it's like, what if some teams are like, well, we'd love to trade this player, but we need some more ammo, and the minor leaguers aren't playing right now, and there's people who have opted out to COVID, to where I wonder where it's like, are we going to see a big deal by the deadline, which is August 31st? And that's why I'll just kick it to you on your thoughts on the situation. Are there deals that you think are going to get done? Are they just going to be a lot of small moving pieces to get playoff teams the little kind of pieces that they need? Or will we see a big trade in this COVID season?
So I think it's a really interesting situation, especially this year. Mm-hmm. And whereas I could definitely see what you're saying is that we may not see a whole lot of things happening. I want to kind of take it from the perspective of the other side, where, as we talked about already, this is a time where it could be anybody's year. And that's what's kind of exciting. And that's what's kind of exciting for teams that usually wouldn't be in it at the end. Mm-hmm. They could make a run if they're able to get the right pieces. Yeah. And this is also a season where I think a lot of people are they're always usually looking for it, but even more so this year, pitching. Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of people as their persons, a lot of teams have had some injuries to pitching already. And because it was such a shortened time to get ready, pitchers haven't really
warmed up.
They haven't really been warmed up. That's why we see a lot of pitchers going 3 innings, 4 innings, again, at the most 5 for a lot of them. So if they're able to go and get maybe another starter, some bullpen help, all that type of stuff, maybe another bat, this is where a team like the Orioles, who, let's say, they're around, they're sticking around, they're third. I know third doesn't automatically go, but they would still have a chance if they have one of the best remaining records after the first 2 teams in each division gets in. Mm-hmm. They could have a chance of being able to get in.
Which right now, I'm just going to do the math really quick. They're 7-7. They would get in. They would get in because Texas is 6-9, Cleveland's 10-7, and then Baltimore 7-7. So they would be the very last team to get into the playoffs at the 8th seed.
So, I mean, there's right there a reason. And now you don't want to blow everything you've got on this year and then not have anything and be in a bad spot going forward. But knowing that, and hopefully, again, that baseball, we see it through to its logical conclusion after the 60 games and how the playoffs play out. If they could make it this year, a team like Baltimore, a team like Detroit, if they're hanging around, they may want to try and make a move. Now, it's going to be the other teams that may say, no, we're staying pat. We're not good this year. It's kind of a lost season, but it's been weird. It's been a whole weird thing. So it is what it is, but we're just going to, regroup, and we'll be back again, stronger next year. So they may not want anything to do with some of these other teams who are trying to trade, but I could definitely see some teams that we don't normally see trying to make moves to add pieces at the deadline, being those teams that are making those or trying to make those moves to add pieces. So that is what I think is going to be really interesting about this trade deadline. We might see some different movers and shakers that we don't usually see. But again, it's going to be kind of with what you were saying, Ricky. Are people going to want to move pieces that aren't even playing right now? I mean, young players who aren't making any progress because they're not playing.
For example, I just want to throw out there, one of the articles from beginning of the season was, Marcus Stroman. Well, he just opted out. So obviously you're not going to trade. And no team's going to trade for him because he's not playing.
Yeah, and he just got to the point where he earned enough service time where he will be a free agent at the end of the season. So he played enough games, and now he's opted out. Bless you. And he is going to be a free agent at the end of this year. So that's going to be really interesting for him. But I think that again, we could either see a completely dead silent trade deadline, or we could see just a frenzy of things happening again with teams that we don't normally see it from.
Yeah. And I mean, the only other things I'll mention about this are what you said about pitchers, and this season's also going to play in this way of like, it's weird for pitching because you haven't warmed up, and then by the time you would be to the part where it's like, wow, my arm's kind of warming up. Oh, it's September, October, November, and it's fucking cold as shit. So it's like, we're even getting to a point where once we get into playoff baseball, I mean, in October, we usually get to see, like, if it's like the Cubs Indians had to deal with it, where it was like, I think one game got delayed a game because of snow in Cleveland, where it's like, if you get a team like the Twins, like the Indians, like the Cubs, that are in the World Series this year, that's going to be a game where it's like, okay, we're going to have to deal with temperatures that are colder than usual, which does not favor the pitcher, who your main weapon is to keep that arm as warm and limber as you can. The only other thing I'm saying is, like, for example, Jim Bowden of The Athletic kind of gives the two teams that he sees that could make a deal are the Yankees and the Rangers. To give the Yankees, they'd probably be looking at, he says, like southpaws like Mike Minor of the Rangers, Caleb Smith of the Marlins, Diamondbacks Robbie Ray, or the Orioles like John Means are some of the names that he mentions. But the last thing I want to mention and kind of bring up before we end the show are the St. Louis Cardinals, because Jake and I kind of mentioned them yesterday, but we didn't go into depth. They are a team right now that has had, what, three series canceled due to their COVID outbreak, which was all their own doing from everything I've seen of, like, reports of players going to casinos and everything. And really, it sucks because, like, Yadier Molina even came out and said he's one of the players that has COVID. And the thing that I hate about this is the Cardinals for a while were higher up on the standings because they had a better win percentage than, at the time, the Reds, who the Reds have played 19 games. The Cardinals have only played 5. Brandon, I know we're going to see the Cardinals play again. I feel like they will end the season, but is this exactly what people were warning Rob Manfred about when the Marlins got it? And he was like, oh, well, we have this thing called winning percentage that we can use. Could the Cardinals create a problem for the MLB and for this season moving forward and the playoffs in general with seeding?
Well, I think the Cardinals have already created a problem. Mm-hmm. And I think that this is a real issue. Yeah. This is a real issue. They have played 5 games, and that's ridiculous. And first of all, I would like to say that those players should be fined and suspended. There's a reason that you're being told to stay in. It's because of this. Mm-hmm. And those players know the risk. They know what they're supposed to do. They chose not to do it, and they're putting other players on their own team at risk. They're putting other team officials and personnel at risk, and then they're putting opposing teams, players and personnel at risk. So they should be fined and suspended. There's no reason for this. That's ridiculous.
Even the radio guys aren't safe. The Rangers play-by-play guy got COVID.
And I think that's ridiculous. I think it was ridiculous for the Marlins too, especially when they're going to a club, they're going to a casino. Those are 2 clear things that are breaking protocol. Don't do it. Yes, it's something that you would normally do, but you can't do that right now, okay? Mm-hmm. You're a player. You're getting paid money. You know what is at stake here. It's just like, do your job. Mm-hmm. Do your job.
Yep.
But the other piece is that, what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to end up making these up. They're going to end up having to make these games up. They're going to have to. The Cardinals are going to be screwed because they're going to have multiple double header games in a row. And that's their own fault. I don't feel bad for them. It's what they're going to have to do this. But that's also why I think that they brought down the innings from 9 to 7. It's better. It's not ideal. I mean, who really wants to play a doubleheader game, that's tough. But I think that that's what they're probably going to have to do. But it's going to be a difficult thing. However, it is nice that it's going to be mainly teams in their division, or obviously across the division, but it's going to be mostly teams within their division, because that's mostly the games that they're going to be playing. But I just think it's a shame. I think it's really a terrible situation. Shame on the Cardinals, but they have screwed this up. They have screwed this up.
So looking back, the Cardinals have not played a game since we've been covering sports on this show, because we started last week on the 3rd. The Cardinals have not played a game since we've been recording this show. Their last game was July 29th. The first game that was postponed was their makeup date with the Brewers on the 2nd. They canceled that series, so that's one. Then they canceled the 4-game skid, 4-game skid they had with the Tigers. That's 2. Then they canceled the weekend series with the Cubs. That's 3. And now they've canceled 2 more series against Pittsburgh and Detroit, coming up to 5. The next time the Cardinals are scheduled to play is in Chicago on Friday, which I think that's going to get postponed. I don't unless they have a miraculous recovery until then, I don't think the Cardinals are going to play anytime soon.
I mean, it's Tuesday. I think that they could still play on Friday.
I don't know if let's say they do miss, I'll say the next two in Chicago, because they played 3 games against the Sox, 3 games against the Cubs, or they're supposed to. The more and more series that you miss with this team, isn't the plural for series?
It's series. It's just,
I thought it was seri. It's not like series is.
It's just you just say series. It's the same for both.
I think it sounds cooler if you say seri, though.
You go
Doesn't
ahead.
That sound cooler?
Like. I know you're a big fan of saying words how you like.
My point being, though, the more and more series that get canceled, the more and more when you say, "Oh, they just got to make them up," the more logistically that becomes not possible. Like the Cubs, the Pirates, the Brewers, these ones are easy because I think it's not hypocritical. That's not the word I'm looking for. Ironic with double headers where it's like, oh, we're going to social distance. We're going to no, by the way, we're going to play 14 innings today. Oh, we're going to shorten them from 9 to 17, but we're going to play 14 innings today. To me, it's like, huh, what? But like for the White Sox, you're not going to make that up. I don't think they're going to make that series up if they miss it. And like the Tigers, where they've missed multiple games now, I don't think they're going to make those up because logistically it's not going to happen. So like, I think the Cardinals aren't going to make the playoffs. Fans will blame COVID for it. And I hope there's not a point where like they come back and they have they have less wins than the Reds, but because they played less games, their percentage is better than the Reds or the Brewers, and they get into the playoffs for that, because I can see that happening, and that would be a nightmare for the MLB in my mind, that a team played less games and got into the playoffs, because then you're just rewarding a team for contracting COVID.
Well, I think that if this goes on any longer with the Cardinals, I think that you just basically ban them from
cancel their season.
Just cancel the season for them. I mean, it's just it ends up being a lost season for them, but you don't take anything away from the other teams, but you are in a sense, because any team that was going to play the Cardinals then is not going to have those games played.
So like for the Cubs, I'll just throw this out there. If they meet the Yankees in the World Series, if they go off of record for home field, the Yankees get a better home field because they played more games because we lost out on games against the Cardinals. Different NL teams can have that argument. I just use the Cubs because I'm a fan of the Cubs.
I mean, it's a can of worms. It's a can of worms situation. And I mean, you just hope that the Cardinals will be able to play their series this weekend, that they will be able to get back on track, because the sooner they get back on track, the more likelihood of actually being able to finish this baseball season. So if they don't, though, we continue to look at a situation where this is getting bad again for the Cardinals, but it's going to put other teams in different situations as well. For any team that may have a 4-game series coming up with them that's maybe in their own division, that's also going to, well, even if it's not in their own division, but it's going to put that team also then 4 games behind. And for better or for worse, it's going to put them in an interesting situation. So really, the Cardinals just need to get their stuff together. They need to start playing games again, but they also have to make sure that they stop getting positive tests.
Yeah, and I mean, with this one, I feel like that's where we're going to have to leave it too, because we don't know when the Cardinals are going to come back to play. We hope that it's healthy and by Friday for a series against the Sox, but I wouldn't be surprised if at least the series against the Sox is postponed and canceled also. But Brandon, I want to thank you for coming on the show today. Like I've told Sean Anderson, like I told Jake yesterday, you're always welcome whenever you want to come on. I miss doing shows with you. Our chemistry, like, that's the thing with us, with you and I, with Dave and I. The chemistry doesn't go nowhere. Like, we can stop doing it, and then it's like, pick it up like it was nothing because of the chemistry between us. I hope you had a good time on the show today.
Oh, I did. I had a blast. It was really great talking with you. It was great talking sports, and it was great to be back on. It was a lot of fun. Also,
I have an announcement just for you that I want to do live on the show. I think you might have noticed it when I did it during the show, but could you do me a favor? Do you have your phone next to you?
Yes.
Could you look at your phone and see what notification you got?
Yeah. You got an Instagram.
I have an Instagram. The patrons of MVP, we were in a watch along and I was like, should I get an Instagram? And they're like, yes, you need an Instagram. We need to see the pictures of Ricky's life. So Ricky Widmer, if you go on Instagram, it's just Ricky Widmer, same as my Twitter. I now have an Instagram.
I love it.
I now have an Instagram. I have yet to follow the models that I want to follow. Mainly it's sports right now. But also when COVID's over, we might be getting some bikini pics from Ricky Widmer. So we'll see. We'll see some nice sexy bikini pics, because that's what Instagram's for, right, Brandon? The sexy bikini pics.
Oh, you're putting them up from you, not from
like I am wearing a bikini.
Like a cute girl. You're not.
Yeah,
putting
that's the joke. The joke is I would be wearing the bikini. But I wanted to. I know that you had Instagram for a while, and I was like, I'm gonna follow Brandon during the show. And then
I love it. I saw that, and I was like, whoa, this is big. Yeah, that's breaking news.
I have, for some reason, mainly because I hate pictures, but then I realized someone explained to me they don't have to be pictures of you.
No, they don't.
There's tons of people that never have pictures of them. I just don't like pictures of me, Brandon. That's all it is. But I want to thank you for being on the show. Soapy's going to get upset if we start going longer, because MVP Games Live is right after this. For you guys watching on Twitch, remember you can always catch the show on MVP Sports the day after. If you're on YouTube right now, you can catch the show Monday through Friday, twitch.tv/MVP Vids. Patreon.com/MVP Vids is how you support us. These will be on podcast services around the world sooner rather than later. We thank you for your patience on that. That is going to do it for today. I will be back tomorrow with Jake Neverman, and then I will close the week out with Soapy Muffin here while Dave is on vacation enjoying, I think he's in Traverse City, Michigan.
I was just there over the weekend. Beautiful place, yes.
I was going to ask you, have you ever been to Traverse City? Because I have
multiple times.
Yeah. I know the Beach Bums play there, but that's all I know about the great city of Traverse City.
Great spot. You'll have to visit pure Michigan, as they say.
I hope that Dave's having a great vacation. I miss him dearly. I'm on the show, but I will be back tomorrow with Jake. And as always, have a good day, everybody.